name is Mary Denora. I'm a PhD student in Technical Communication and Rhetoric and a part-time instructor at Texas Tech University. As you see from this cartoon in the overview, sometimes thinking about how different kinds of learners might benefit from changing our approaches to feedback, we actually cut down our own work and help to support every single learner. You've maybe seen this before, the feedback sandwich, and some people don't like it and other people do. I think what's important about this approach to feedback, and you don't have to hold strict and fast to how it's outlined, but I think what's important about this kind of feedback model is that you're starting out with encouragement for students. You're pointing out the things that they're doing well, and you're being very specific in those things. And then as you bring those to light, you also point out the ways that they can improve, and asking questions or modeling for them how they might improve their work. Maybe pull out a specific sentence and then provide some instruction for how to move forward, or make suggestions, and then remind them of what they did well again and end on a positive note. So the good thing about this kind of feedback is that it encourages students. It doesn't shut them down and make them want to walk away from the class. The challenges involved with it are, if you end on a positive note, sometimes they feel like they really don't have anything more to do. So you'll want to pair this with modeling in class what you expect in terms of revision. So I've divided these kinds of recommendations into asynchronous versus synchronous, and what kinds of tools you might think about using. So in terms of asynchronous, handwritten comments, you could scan those papers and then upload them. Avoid that red pen, using pencil, or you could use Google Docs, and then use comments or the suggestion feature. You may use Microsoft Word to provide comments and what we typically think of as redlining. If you're not familiar with that settings, you should definitely Google that and check it out. There's a way to change your redlining so that it's not red, and so I recommend that you change your redlining to rather green or some other color that may not kind of give students that sort of "this is wrong" feeling. And so many students have issues wrapped up with writing and bad experiences in terms of previous English classes with writing. So this is kind of an important piece when you're wanting students to engage and make the kind of revisions that will help them. Rubrics are always good, but you should always provide some sort of summary. That could be audio, or even a video. So you can use video commentary with captionings, and then maybe provide transcripts. We have many technologies now that will produce the transcript for you, so that's something to think about. And then audio commentary, sort of like a podcast. Or you can also do, screencasting and record as you're going through a paper, so that it records your mouse hovering over a particular part of the paper. It helps guide students with both visual and also auditory approaches. Now, obviously, you'll have some students that maybe have hearing difficulties, so then other kinds of technology should be employed. In synchronous settings, face-to-face, you can also create the synchronous fill for tutoring or online instruction by using telephone conferencing, or things like Skype or Zoom, or GoToMeeting. Some of these, like Zoom and GoToMeeting, provide features that will record the session and you can share your screen. So you can use Google Docs, or you can do a screen share and go over student work with the student, producing this sort of conferencing model. This allows them to ask questions or they can type comments, but they can also watch and see what you're pointing out as areas of concerns rather than having just comments in the sidebar of their paper. So when you're modeling feedback or taking student interviews, these things will provide more support to students to help them with the process of taking instructor feedback seriously and also engaging with that feedback. So let's start with student interviews first. So, it would be nice to be able to interview students at the beginning of the semester or to have a good sense of what their needs are when they're coming into the class. That's not always the case. You can certainly, some institutions allow you to see what major a student has, that sort of thing, or even to look at their pictures, but obviously these things don't always provide the kinds of details that you need, and students don't necessarily have to disclose disabilities or learning difficulties. So universal design for learning is important because then you can try to meet the needs of students that don't feel like they can disclose their concerns or issues or needs. So some of the things that you can do in terms of interviewing students without pushing them to disclose is to provide a discussion board that sort of asks students early on in the semester, maybe the first day, to discuss what they like or dislike about previous classes, what's been helpful to them. That way they're not criticizing you, they don't feel like they're being put on the spot. Some of them might feel a little bit like that, but just tell them, you don't have to tell me what instructor you had issues with. Or you could frame the question as what you liked most, and then you avoid the negative part of it. And then you can provide an anonymous survey. You could even do a few of those in the semester, just short questions asking really specific things about what's helping their learning process, what they've felt most helpful. You can gear that entirely based on feedback or whatever your needs are. And then what I've found is very effective is to sit down with students, even if it's online, sit down, maybe Skype or something like that, where you listen for cues and ask students questions about what they need, maybe going over a paper and providing your commentary and encouragement back to them. And when students listen to what you have to say and respond, they'll often give you cues about the ways that they learn and what kind of learners they are. So if your students keep saying I see, then you know that in terms of their primary learning stimulus, they need to be able to see what you're doing or model how you might have them revise a sentence for them. Or if they say that they get it, then that's more of a kinesthetic learner. Or that sounds right, then they're more of an auditory learner. And that should help you in terms of thinking about creating rich multimodal feedback for them that will speak to those particular learning stimuli. In terms of modeling feedback, you want to provide a good foundation for students so that they can understand that writing is a process. It's not sort of you sit down, you write this, and then you're done. These are all things that but we should think more intentionally in terms of how we stage out our different assignments in a class so that they recognize that there is a process to the work. It's not always easy to do that, but if you can at least do that with one major assignment where it's broken up into pieces and they have the opportunity to do revision on different parts and to incorporate feedback, that's very helpful. And finally, here are my references. Again, my name is Mary Denora, and I'm an instructor at Texas Tech University. My email address is mary.denora@ttu.edu, and I look forward to meeting with you online.